The city never sleeps, but tonight it seemed darker than usual. Rain-slicked streets reflected the neon lights in jagged patterns, and the distant wail of sirens cut through the night air. People hurried past, wrapped in coats and umbrellas, oblivious to small, desperate sounds that hid in the shadows. That's where she was. Tiny, fragile, and alone, left where no one would think to look. Most people walked right by, but not her. Not the black maid who worked in the billionaire's mansion, unseen, unnoticed, but somehow always watching, always caring in ways no one could imagine. Her name was Clara. For years, she had served in the sprawling estate of the city's richest man, a man who seemed untouchable and cold, focused only on wealth and power. Clara had grown accustomed to being invisible to the world, blending into the background as she cleaned, cooked, and obeyed orders. But one rainy night, everything she had known changed. On her way home after a long, exhausting day, a faint, pitiful sound caught her attention. At first, she thought it was a stray animal, lost and shivering. But as she drew closer, the truth hit her like a bolt of lightning. There, hidden among the garbage and discarded trash of a quiet alley, was a child. A little girl, no older than 4, wrapped in a torn blanket, her face pale and streaked with tears. Something about her struck Clara instantly. Something familiar yet heart-wrenching. A sense that this child's life could be snatched away in an instant if she didn't act. Her heart raced, but her mind was clear. She couldn't leave her here. Not this one. Not tonight. Clara's hands trembled as she lifted the girl, feeling the weight of her tiny body and the enormity of what she was about to do. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to keep this secret safe. But a deeper courage had awakened inside her. She knew that saving this child might change everything. Not just her life, but the life of the billionaire family she had served faithfully for so long. Questions swirled in her mind. Who had left the girl here? Why? And how could anyone abandon a child in such a cruel way? As the rain fell harder, soaking them both, Clara made a silent vow. She would protect this girl at all costs. And she would find the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. But she also knew that uncovering the secrets of the mansion, the wealth, the power, the hidden scandals, would put her squarely in the path of people who would do anything to keep their secrets buried. Tonight, an ordinary maid was about to step into a story far bigger than herself, a story of courage, mystery, and the fragile hope that even the smallest act of kindness can change the world. And yet, even as Clara held the girl close, the shadows seemed to stir around them, whispering that someone had been watching, someone who would not let this discovery go unnoticed. The question now was simple but terrifying. Could Clara protect the girl before it was too late? Or had she already walked into a danger she could never escape? Clara hurried to the narrow alley, clutching the trembling little girl tightly against her chest. The rain soaked through her uniform, chilling her to the bone, but she barely noticed. Her mind kept replaying the moment she'd found the child, those frightened eyes, the quiet whimper, the way she'd reached out as if she somehow knew Clara would help. It felt like fate had placed a girl in her path. But Clara also knew that fate rarely worked alone. Someone had put her there. Someone had walked away. By the time Clara reached the small bus shelter near the main road, the girl's shivering had grown worse. Clara wrapped her own scarf around her, whispering, "It's okay. Sweetheart, you're safe now." But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure they were true. Every passing car made her tense. Every shadow felt heavier. It was as if the city itself was hiding something, and Clara had stumbled right into the middle of it. She pulled out her old phone, its cracked screen flickering under the streetlight. For a moment, she considered calling the police, but her fingers froze above the buttons. Her instincts warned her not to. Not yet. Something about the girl felt too connected, too fragile. If the authorities got involved too quickly, the story could twist, and the truth might vanish behind power and influence. Clara had seen it happen too many times during her years working in the billionaire's mansion. Problems didn't get solved, they got covered. She looked down at the girl again. Her tiny hands were clutching a bracelet. Silver, delicate, and unmistakably expensive. Clara recognized the design instantly. She had polished pieces just like it in the mansion's private jewelry room, the one belonging to the billionaire's wife. Her breath caught in her throat. Could it be? The resemblance, the bracelet, the timing. No, it couldn't be the billionaire's missing daughter, the child who had disappeared months ago, sending the entire city into panic, the child whose face still appeared on posters, on the news, on every corner of the internet. But the more Clara looked at the girl, the more her heart whispered the unthinkable. If she was right, then this wasn't just a lost child. This was the center of a storm, a truth too dangerous to ignore. The bus arrived, and Clara stepped on with the girl bundled in her arms. She kept her head low, avoiding curious eyes. As the vehicle rattled through the city, Clara thought back to Mansion, the silent hallways, the guarded expressions, the staff told never to speak of certain things. She remembered the night the billionaire's daughter disappeared, how the household froze in fear, how the security guards whispered about secrets, about arguments behind closed doors, how Clara herself overheard things she was never meant to hear. The little girl stirred, whispering something too soft to understand. Clara leaned closer, but the words slipped away like mist. She only knew one thing for sure. Someone had left this child in a dumpster. Someone who wanted her gone. And if the girl truly belonged to the billionaire's family, that meant the danger wasn't in the alley anymore. It was waiting at the mansion. As the bus neared her stop, Clara felt the weight of a choice pressing harder with each passing second. Should she take the girl home and keep her hidden? Or should she return to the mansion and face the people who might be tied to this? Before she could decide, she noticed a dark car in the distance, parked at the corner of her street, its headlights off, its windows tinted. And even from inside the bus, Clara felt the unmistakable chill of being watched. She tightened her hold on the girl, her heartbeat thundering. Nothing about this night was an accident, and the real danger was only just beginning. Clara stepped off the bus with the girl held close, her eyes scanning every corner of the dimly lit street. The dark car hadn't moved. It sat silently at the edge of the block, like it had been waiting for her. She didn't recognize the make or the plates, but she knew enough to trust the instinct tightening her chest. She turned away quickly and hurried down the narrow lane toward her small apartment. Her footsteps were soft, but her heartbeat was loud enough to drown out the rain. Inside, the apartment was warm but cramped. A single room with peeling wallpaper and a tiny kitchen stove that rattled whenever she turned it on. It wasn't much, but it was the only place that had ever felt like hers. She laid the child gently on the old sofa, wrapping her in the softest blanket she owned. The girl's eyelids fluttered, and for a moment she looked like she wanted to speak. But exhaustion pulled her back under. Clara moved quietly, brewing warm milk and setting a small lamp on the table. But her mind was tangled with questions she couldn't escape. Why had someone abandoned this child in a dumpster? Why did the bracelet match the one she knew belonged to the billionaire's family? And who was in that dark car watching her? While the girl slept, Clara sat beside her, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. There was something about her features, delicate, familiar, almost identical to the framed photograph that hung in the mansion's grand hallway. The billionaire's wife had clung to that photo when reporters came. Clara remembered the way she trembled, but there had always been something else too. Fear. A fear that no mother should have when speaking about her missing daughter. Clara shook the memory away. Maybe she was imagining the resemblance. Maybe the bracelet was just a coincidence. But deep down, she knew coincidences didn't wait in dumpsters on rainy nights. A soft knock at the door made her freeze. Not loud, not urgent, almost polite. She held her breath, waiting for it to come again. But the second knock was firmer, a warning disguised as patience. Clara's fingers trembled as she reached for her phone, but before she could dial anyone, a voice slipped through the door, low, calm, and unsettling. "Clara, we know you're inside." Her blood turned cold. Whoever they were, they knew her name. She backed away from the door, shielding the child behind her as if the thin wooden frame could protect them both. The voice spoke again, this time with a softness that made it even worse. "We just want to talk. You picked up something that doesn't belong to you." Clara's heart sank. They weren't talking about an object. They were talking about the girl. The knock came again, louder this time. She reached for a chair and quietly wedged it under the doorknob. Her breath came in shaky bursts. She didn't have anyone to call. Not the mansion, not the police, not even a friend. For years, she had lived quietly, working long hours and keeping to herself. No one would come running if she screamed. The door handle rattled once, testing. Then silence. Moments later, footsteps retreated down the stairs. Clara didn't relax. She knew retreat didn't mean safety. Whoever they were buying time. She rushed to the window. Peeking through the curtain, the dark car was now parked closer, right across from her building. Its engine hummed softly like a warning. Clara closed the curtain and turned toward the girl, whispering, "Why you? Who would do this to you?" The child stirred again, her voice weak but clear this time. They said, "I wasn't supposed to come back." Clara froze. The girl wasn't just lost. She was running from something, or someone, and Clara had just stepped into the center of a dangerous truth she still didn't understand. Clara felt the girl's words echo through her tiny apartment like a cold wind. They said I wasn't supposed to come back. The sentence carried a fear no child should ever know. Clara knelt beside her, trying to offer comfort even though her own hands trembled. The girl's eyes were open now, wide, glassy, and filled with a quiet sadness that didn't belong to someone so young. "What's your name?" Clara whispered, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's cheek. The child hesitated, as if the answer itself were a secret. "Lena," she finally murmured. Clara felt her stomach tighten. Lena, the same name plastered across news headlines and missing posters for months. The name reporters cried about. The name the billionaire begged the world to help him find. There was no room left for coincidence. Before Clara could ask another question, a sharp noise outside made her jump. A car door slammed. Then another. Voices murmured below, too low to understand but too close to ignore. Clara peeked out the window, careful not to disturb the curtain. 3 figures stood beside the dark car now. 2 men in plain black coats and a woman holding a folder against her chest. Their movements were calm, practiced, like people who were used to being unnoticed but never ignored. Clara's pulse pounded. Whoever they were, they hadn't left. They were waiting. She backed away from the window and grabbed her small, worn-out bag. She had no real plan, only the instinct to protect Lena. She stuffed in a water bottle, a scarf, and a little bit of cash she had. Then she wrapped Lena in her jacket. "We have to go," Clara whispered. "Where?" Lena asked weakly. "Somewhere safe." But even as she said it, Clara didn't know where safety existed anymore. The mansion? Impossible. The police? She couldn't trust them. Staying here would only make it easier for whoever waited outside. The stairwell creaked as they stepped out of the apartment. Clara held Lena close, listening to every sound. She took the back exit, hoping the shadows would hide them. But halfway down the alley, a car engine roared to life. Headlights flashed bright, blinding, and swept across the walls until they landed directly on her. Clara froze like a deer caught in danger. A voice boomed from the car window. "Clara, bring the girl. Now." She didn't recognize the voice, but its tone left no room for doubt. This wasn't a request. It was an order. Lena trembled in her arms, burying her face against Clara's shoulder. Clara took a step back. Then another. The car inched forward, matching her movement, its headlights trapping her in their beam. "Don't make this difficult," the voice warned again. Clara's breath shook as she looked around the alley, searching for any escape. The rain had turned the ground slick, puddles reflecting the car's lights like broken mirrors. She knew she couldn't outrun a vehicle, not while carrying a child. But she also knew she couldn't hand Lena over, not without knowing the truth. Just when she felt cornered, a second pair of headlights appeared from the opposite end of the alley. A black SUV rolled in slowly, blocking the first car's path. The 2 vehicles faced each other, engines rumbling like a silent challenge. Clara didn't know who the second car belonged to, but the tension in the air thickened instantly. The men from the first car stepped out, shouting something Clara couldn't make out. The SUV doors opened too, revealing 2 silhouettes stepping into the rain. For a moment, everything froze. 2 sides squaring off, Clara trapped in the middle, holding the one child both sides seemed to want. Lena gripped her tightly, whispering, "They're not here to help." Clara swallowed hard, caught between two unknown forces. With no one to trust and nowhere to run, she realized the truth she had feared from the moment she picked Lena up from the dumpster. This wasn't just a missing child case. This was a battle over the billionaire's daughter. And Clara, an ordinary maid, stood at the center of a storm about to break wide open. The rain poured harder, blurring the shapes of the two groups facing off in the alley. Clara held Lena close, her clothes drenched and her heart pounding so loudly she feared everyone could hear it. The first car's men moved forward, sharp and aggressive, while the two figures in the black SUV stayed calm, almost too calm, like they had expected this moment. Clara didn't know who was more dangerous. One of the SUV doors swung open again and a third figure stepped out, tall, coat dripping, moving with purpose. When he stepped under the faint alley light, Clara's breath caught. She knew that face. It was Mr. Hale, the billionaire's head of security. The man who had overseen every search party, every interview, every press conference after Lena vanished. The same man who had once warned Clara never to wander near the private wing of the mansion. What was he doing here? "Clara," he said, his voice firm but strangely steady, "come with me. You're not safe with them." The men from the first car immediately shouted back, "That child doesn't belong to you. Step away and hand her over." Hale didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Clara, unreadable. "You have no idea who these people are, Clara. Don't trust them. Don't trust anyone except me." His tone was too calm, too practiced. A chill crawled up Clara's spine. She remembered the hushed arguments in the mansion after Lena disappeared. She remembered seeing Hale slip into the billionaire's office late at night, always closing the door behind him. She remembered how the staff whispered that Hale knew more than he ever let on. Now he was here in the dark, in the rain, with two cars cornering her like a hunt. "Why are you here?" Clara demanded, her voice shaking. "How did you find me?" Hale's jaw tightened. "Because you have something that belongs to the family. Something I've been looking for." The way he said it, something, not someone, made Clara step back instinctively. Lena clutched Clara's shirt, her voice barely audible. "Don't go with him. He knows." Clara's pulse skipped. "Knows what?" Lena shook her head, tears mixing with rain. "He told him I couldn't stay. He said I wasn't supposed to come home." Clara felt everything collapse inside her. Hale wasn't here to save Lena. He was one of the reasons she had disappeared. Before Clara could react, the men from the first car pulled something from inside their coats. Not weapons, but badges. Government ones. Their leader stepped forward through the rain. "Clara," he said calmly, "we're investigators. We've been tracking a private group involved in illegal child transfers. Hale is part of it. The mansion is not what you think. Lena was taken, not lost." Clara felt the world tilt. Nothing made sense anymore. Hale suddenly barked, "Don't listen to them. They're twisting everything." But his voice cracked, just slightly, betraying a truth he didn't want exposed. The investigators moved closer, hands raised in a gesture of safety, but Hale stepped between them and Clara, blocking their view. His eyes hardened, his voice dropping low. "Give me the girl, Clara, right now. You don't know what you're involved in." Clara's hands tightened around Lena. She felt the child shaking uncontrollably, silently pleading. The alley was no longer just a confrontation. It was a battlefield of secrets. And then the second twist hit. From the SUV, someone else slowly stepped out. A woman, slight, trembling, her face hidden by a hood until she lifted it. Clara nearly dropped Lena. It was the billionaire's wife. Her eyes were red and swollen. Not cold, not calculating. Desperate. "Clara," she whispered through shaking lips, tears streaming freely. "Please, give me my daughter before they take her again." In that moment, Clara realized the truth was far more twisted than she imagined. The danger wasn't from one side. It was coming from every side. And she was standing in the middle, holding the one child everyone was fighting for. Yet no one had truly protected. The billionaire's wife stood in the rain, her trembling hands reaching out as if she had been waiting a lifetime for this moment. Her voice cracked when she whispered Lena's name, and for a second, the entire alley seemed to fall silent. Even the investigators hesitated. Even Hale froze. Lena lifted her head from Clara's shoulder. Her small body shivered, her eyes filled with confusion. "Mama?" she whispered, the word fragile and uncertain, like she wasn't sure if it still belonged to her. The billionaire's wife, Amelia, let out a sob, stepping forward. But Hale blocked her path, his jaw set and his voice sharp. "Ma'am, step back. Clara is coming with me." "No," Amelia whispered, the strength in her voice rising. "You don't get to command me anymore." Clara could feel the tension snapping tighter with every passing second. She clutched Lena protectively, her mind racing. She looked between the investigators, Hale and Amelia, realizing the truth had been hiding in pieces all this time. "You took her, didn't you?" Clara said, staring at Hale. "You were supposed to protect this family, but you took her." Hale didn't answer. His silence was louder than any confession. "She found out," the lead investigator said quietly. "Mrs. Hale uncovered evidence of the group he was involved with, everything he was hiding." Amelia's voice broke. "He threatened me. He said if I spoke, if I tried to tell anyone, I would lose her forever." Clara felt her hands go cold. She looked down at Lena, imagining the terror she must have felt, the confusion, the fear. This little girl had been caught in a world of power and secrets she couldn't even understand. Hale finally moved, desperation replacing his calm exterior. "Enough. Clara, hand the girl to me. Now." His hand reached forward, and that's when Clara made her choice. "No," she whispered. She turned and ran, straight toward the investigators. They quickly stepped in, forming a protective wall around her and Lena. Hale lunged forward, but Amelia stepped in front of him, her voice rising with a strength she hadn't shown in years. "You won't touch her again," she said fiercely. Hale's fury broke through the mask he'd always worn. He reached into his coat for something, but before he could act, the investigators moved fast, restraining him with practiced precision. Hale struggled, shouting that Amelia was lying, that this wasn't over, that they didn't understand what they were destroying. But his words faded into the rain as they pulled him away. Amelia collapsed to her knees, sobbing as Lena hesitated, then slowly slipped from Clara's arms and into her mother's. The reunion was quiet, trembling, filled with a mixture of relief and fear as if neither truly believed it was real. Clara stood back, breathing hard, watching the moment she fought so hard to protect. She felt the weight of the night finally settling on her shoulders. Every choice, every step, every fear. Amelia looked up at her with gratitude that couldn't be spoken. "You saved her," she whispered. "You saved my daughter." Clara nodded softly, tears gathering in her eyes. She saved herself. I just listened. For a moment, it felt like everything was finally over. But then the twist came. As the investigator began escorting Clara, Amelia, and Lena toward the SUV, Lena tugged on Clara's sleeve. Her voice was small, but the words were crystal clear. "Clara, the man in the alley wasn't the one who took me." Clara froze. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Lena shook her head, her expression suddenly distant and frightened. There was someone else. Someone who told him what to do. Before Clara could ask anything more, the little girl looked over her shoulder, past the investigators, past cars, past the flashing lights, to the mouth of the alley, where a shadow stood, watching. Then it slipped away into the night. The danger wasn't gone. It had only stepped back. The investigators immediately turned toward the entrance of the alley, scanning every corner as if expecting the shadow to reappear. But the figure was gone, leaving behind only the echo of Lena's frightened words. Clara held the girl's hand tightly, trying to steady her own breath. She could see the fear in Lena's eyes, fear that came from remembering something she had tried hard to forget. One of the investigators knelt down beside Lena, speaking softly. "You're safe now. Whoever that person was, will find them." Lena nodded, but her small fingers stayed curled around Clara's. She didn't let go, not even when the team guided them into the warm SUV and drove them away from the alley. As they pulled onto the main road, Clara finally allowed herself to exhale, Rain streaked across the window, blurring the city lights into soft trails. Amelia sat in the back seat with Lena in her lap, whispering comforting words, brushing her hair gently. Clara watching from the front, her heart swelling with something indescribable, relief, grief, and hope all tangled together. Amelia reached forward and touched Clara's shoulder. "You didn't just find her," she said quietly. "You protected her in ways I never could. I owe you everything." Clara shook her head. "You owe me nothing. She's your child. She deserves to be home." "But you were her home tonight," Amelia replied, tears welling in her eyes. "You didn't turn away when everyone else did." As the SUV drove toward a safe facility where Amelia and Lena would be temporarily placed under protection, the investigators filled in the missing pieces of the story. The shadow Lena saw belonged to someone higher up in Hale's network, someone who had orchestrated the abduction from the beginning. Hale had been the face of the operation, but not the mastermind. The investigation would continue, and the authorities now had enough evidence to follow the trail. For the first time, Clara felt the weight slowly lifting. She had stepped into a world of danger without meaning to, but she had also uncovered a truth that had been hidden for too long. She looked at Lena, who finally gave her a small, sleepy smile. For Clara, that single smile made every terrifying moment worth it. When they reached the safe house, Amelia held Lena close as they stepped out. She turned back to Clara one last time. "Please don't disappear from our lives," she said softly. "If Lena asks for you, I want her to know you're still here." Clara hesitated, tears rising in her eyes. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Clara nodded, promising she would visit. She watched as Amelia and Lena were escorted inside, disappearing behind a secure door. The night felt quieter now, the storm easing into a gentle drizzle. The investigators thanked her, offering support if she ever needed anything. But Clara only shook her head and began walking home, her steps slow but steady. As she reached her tiny apartment, she paused in the doorway. Everything looked the same: the old sofa, the peeling wallpaper, the worn-out blanket she had wrapped around Lena earlier. But Clara felt different, stronger, braver. She had stepped into the darkness and chosen to protect someone who needed her, even when she didn't have much herself. She sat down on the sofa and allowed herself to breathe, really breathe. The night was finally over. The danger had passed for now, and Lena was safe with her mother where she belonged. Clara didn't know what would happen next in the investigation, or if a mysterious shadow would ever be found. But she did know one thing with absolute certainty: the choices she made had changed her life, maybe even saved it. And in a world filled with unpredictable storms, that small, quiet truth felt like the brightest light of all.